The soft hum of Sam's laptop filled the quiet apartment, its screen casting a pale glow against the dimly lit room. Daniel had never been the type to snoop. He valued trust. Until now. It had started as an ordinary evening. He had returned from work, loosened his tie, and poured himself a drink. The apartment was quiet. Sam was in the shower. That's when he saw it. Her laptop left open on the kitchen counter, a message thread still glowing on the screen. He hadn't meant to look, but something caught his eye. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. We have to be more careful. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His fingers tightened around the glass. Slowly, carefully, he set it down. The messages weren't just suggestive, they were blatant. Names, details, secret meetings. His heart pounded in his chest, but his face remained eerily still. He wasn't the type to explode in rage. That was too easy, too predictable. Instead, he took a slow breath, his mind already beginning to work. If she could play a game, so could he. Sam walked out of the bathroom minutes later, wrapped in a towel, her hair damp, smiling as if nothing had happened. Hey, babe, long day? Daniel turned to her, his expression unreadable. Yeah, just work. You exhausting, she sighed dramatically. Office politics are killing me. Office politics. He almost laughed, if only she knew what was about to happen. Over the next few days, he watched her. Every excuse, every lingering glance at her phone, every suspiciously late meeting, it all clicked into place. He played his role perfectly, still the devoted boyfriend, still the man she thought she had fooled, but the truth was, she had just given him a reason to remind her exactly who he was. He wasn't going to leave quietly. Daniel was nothing if not patient. A lesser man would have confronted her that night, demanded answers, thrown accusations. But he wasn't interested in answers. He already had them. What he wanted was retribution. He started with the basics. Evidence. He created a folder on his phone labeled finance reports, tucked safely between work documents, a place she'd never think to check. Every day, while Sam thought he was just another distracted boyfriend, he was documenting her lies. Screenshots of texts saved. A log of her locations noted. Pictures of her sneaking out of the office, meeting him, captured. And then the real work began. Daniel studied her, noting the way she covered her tracks, the way she silenced notifications when they had dinner, how she always showered immediately after coming home late, as if washing away the evidence of where she had been. She thought she was careful. She wasn't careful enough. One evening, as she stood in the kitchen pouring herself a glass of wine, he casually asked, "How's work?" Sam didn't even flinch. "Stressful. Mr. Carter's been pushing us hard. I had to stay late again." Daniel sipped his drink, nodding thoughtfully. "You're really putting in extra hours. Must be exhausting." "It is," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "But it'll pay off soon." "Oh, it will, just not in the way you think." The next day, Daniel arranged for a long lunch break and parked across from her office. He had timed it perfectly. At exactly 12:45 p.m., he spotted her stepping out, not alone, but with Jason. Jason, her charming, well-dressed colleague. Jason, whose hand brushed a little too close to hers. Jason, who leaned in just a little too intimately when he spoke. Daniel watched, camera in hand, click, click, click. As he flipped through the images, he felt no anger, just satisfaction. This wasn't just some harmless flirtation. This was calculated, planned deception. And soon, she'd learn that no one outplays him. He considered his next steps. A direct confrontation would be messy. If he simply left her, she'd spin the story in her favor, make herself the victim. But if she lost everything at once, her reputation, her career, her security, she wouldn't recover. That's when he realized exactly how to ruin her. Her boss, Mr. Carter, was notorious for his zero-tolerance policy on workplace scandals. He prided himself on maintaining a company that was ethical, professional, scandal-free. A single hint of impropriety could mean termination. Daniel smiled to himself. Perfect. That night, he stayed up late crafting a message. It needed to be subtle, not an outright accusation, but something that would force Mr. Carter to act. He printed the messages, the photographs, and placed them in a crisp white envelope. On the front, he wrote, "I think you should know how some of your employees spend their office hours." The next morning, before Sam even left for work, Daniel was already there, slipping the envelope onto Mr. Carter's desk before anyone else arrived. By the time she stepped into the office, the walls would already be closing in. Daniel didn't need to be in the office to know the exact moment his carefully placed bomb went off. He imagined it perfectly. The moment Mr. Carter sat down at his pristine desk, his eyes scanning the envelope, the way his brow furrowed as he pulled out the papers. A few moments of silence, followed by a slow, deliberate intake of breath as the realization set in. A scandal, a betrayal, a stain on the company's reputation. It wouldn't take long for the news to spread. Office gossip moved faster than wildfire, and once the whispers started, there was no stopping them. Daniel was patient. He didn't text Sam that morning, didn't ask how her day was going. Instead, he went about his routine, pretending as if everything was normal. She would come to him. She always did. And she did. At precisely 11:17 a.m., his phone buzzed. "Sam, something weird is going on at work. Did you hear anything?" Daniel stared at the message, amused. She was fishing, trying to gauge if he knew anything. He waited exactly 13 minutes before replying. "Daniel, no, why?" She didn't answer right away. He imagined her sitting at her desk, phone in hand, debating what to say. She was rattled, that much was clear, but she wasn't afraid yet. That would come soon enough. At lunchtime, things had escalated. Another message came through, more urgent this time. "Sam, babe, I think someone is spreading rumors about me at work. It's ridiculous. I might need to come home early." Daniel smirked. The cracks were forming. "Daniel, rumors? About what?" He could almost hear her heartbeat skipping through the screen. "Sam is stupid. Some nonsense about Jason and me. I don't know who started it, but Carter is calling me into his office. Probably just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. She still thought she could talk her way out of it." Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. She had no idea. The day dragged on, but he didn't reach out again. He wanted her to marinate in uncertainty, to let the anxiety take root. He pictured her sitting across from Carter, struggling to explain herself, watching as his expression remained cold, unyielding. Would she try to deny it? Would she blame Jason? Would she try to spin it into some workplace harassment narrative? By the time she came home, the answer was written all over her face. The moment of realization, Sam slammed the door shut, throwing her purse onto the counter. Her usual poise was gone, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes wide with barely contained panic. Daniel sat at the dining table, sipping his coffee, his expression unreadable. He looked up casually. "Rough day?" She glared at him. "You have no idea." He tilted his head, feigning concern. "Try me." Sam let out a sharp breath, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "Someone sent an anonymous letter to Carter Daniel. An envelope full of bullshit, try to make it look like I'm having an affair with Jason." Daniel took a slow sip. Her eyes snapped to his. For the briefest moment he saw it, the hesitation, a flicker of fear. Then she composed herself. "Of course not. You seriously think I'd do something like that?" "I don't know," he said, setting his cup down. "It's just the way you're acting makes it seem like there's something to hide." Her face flushed. "Carter suspended me, Daniel, indefinitely. He said he's launching an investigation, that my behavior might be damaging to the company's image. I could lose everything." Daniel exhaled, shaking his head. "That's tough." Sam threw up her hands. "That's all you have to say?" He stood up slowly, walking toward her. "What do you want me to say, Sam? That I'm surprised?" She blinked. "What? That I had no idea? That I didn't see the messages on your laptop? That I didn't notice the late nights, the secret glances, the way you've been lying to my face for months?" "Hmm?" His voice remained calm, cold. Sam paled. "Daniel, I don't," he cut her off, his voice like a knife. "Don't insult me by pretending." For the first time, she had nothing to say. She just stood there, staring at him, her mind scrambling for an escape route, but there wasn't one. Daniel leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You thought you could keep your little secret, play your little games, and that I'd never find out? That I'd just keep being the doting boyfriend, clueless and devoted?" Sam swallowed hard. "But you made one mistake," he continued. "You underestimated me." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "How does it feel?" he asked, tilting his head. "Knowing that everything you built, everything you work for is slipping away. That all those little lies are crashing down around you." Tears welled in her eyes. "Daniel, please, He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You should have been smarter." And with that, he walked past her, leaving her standing alone in the ruins of her carefully constructed lies. The trap had been set, and she had walked right into it. Sam sat at the kitchen table, unmoving. The silence between her and Daniel was thick, suffocating. She had stopped crying, but her hand still trembled, fingers gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Daniel watched her from across the room, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He had always admired control, having it, mastering it, wielding it like a weapon when necessary. And now, watching her crumble, he felt nothing but satisfaction. "You haven't said much," he finally broke the silence, his voice calm, detached. "A few hours ago, you were full of excuses. Now, nothing?" Sam swallowed her throat dry. "What do you want me to say?" "That depends." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you want to keep lying, or are you finally ready to tell the truth?" Her eyes darted toward him, filled with something between fear and disbelief. The truth, as if saying it would change anything now. "Dale, please," she whispered. "You don't understand." His lips curled slightly. "Oh, I think I understand perfectly. You were careless, and now you're paying for it." Sam's face tightened. For a brief second, he saw a flash of defiance, the same cold arrogance that had let her walk into their home night after night, pretending everything was fine. "I wasn't careless," she muttered under her breath. Daniel chuckled. "You're right. You were stupid." Her eyes widened in shock. "You thought no one would notice," he continued, stepping closer, his voice dropping just above a whisper, "that you could sneak around, play your little game, and never get caught. That I would never see it, never feel it." Sam's breathing grew unsteady. I never meant to hurt you." "That's the difference between us," Daniel said, his tone soft but merciless. "I did mean to hurt you." Her lips parted slightly, a breath caught in her throat. He had never spoken to her like this before, never looked at her like she was less than nothing. Daniel turned away, exhaling slowly. "But you know what? The best part is it's not even about me anymore." He picked up his phone from the counter and held it up. Sam flinched. "What is that?" He unlocked the screen and scrolled through a series of messages. "You've got bigger problems to worry about, sweetheart." She watched in horror as he tapped on a message thread with Jason's wife. Jason's wife. Sam's stomach twisted. "What did you do?" Daniel shrugged. "I simply thought she deserved to know. After all, it wouldn't be fair for only one of you to lose everything." Sam shot up from the chair, panic seizing her. "You told her?" "Not just her," Daniel replied smoothly. "A few of Jason's colleagues, too, just in case Carter didn't find out fast enough." Her breathing hitched. "You're lying." Daniel let out a slow, deliberate sigh, placing his phone face up on the table. "Call her." "Ask her yourself." Sam's fingers hovered over her own phone, hesitating. If he was telling the truth, and she knew deep down he was, then Jason's life was already falling apart, just like hers. She squeezed her eyes shut, a fresh wave of nausea rolling through her. "You're ruining everything." Daniel's laughter was cold. "No, you ruined everything the moment you decided to sleep with him." The reckoning. By morning, the consequences had begun to fully unfold. Sam's phone was buzzing nonstop. Jason had tried calling her 6 times, then resorted to messages. "Jason, what did you tell your boyfriend?" "Jason, my wife knows." "She knows." "Jason, you have to fix this." "Jason, answer your damn phone, Sam." Sam buried her face in her hands. "Fix this." How could she fix this? Her boss knew. Jason's wife knew. Her colleagues knew. Her carefully curated reputation was slipping through her fingers like sand. She had spent years building herself into the perfect image of success. Smart, driven, untouchable. Now all anyone would see was a woman who destroyed her own career over an office affair. A liability. She felt Daniel's presence behind her before he spoke. "Lost your appetite?" His voice was deceptively light. Sam didn't answer. He sat across from her, sipping his coffee, completely at ease. "I'm guessing Jason's having a rough morning too?" She glared at him, but it lacked its usual fire. "Do you hate me that much?" Daniel tilted his head. "Hate you? No. That would mean I still cared." Her heart clenched. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "You had everything, Sam. A good life. A man who actually cared. And you threw it away for what? Some idiot at work who can't even save himself?" Sam looked away, jaw clenched. "You should have thought ahead," Daniel said, standing up. "Like I did." She flinched at the weight of those words. "Like I did." This wasn't revenge done in anger. This was a masterpiece, crafted with precision. Daniel picked up his keys from the counter, glancing back at her. "I have a meeting. Feel free to stay here and sulk. Not like you have anywhere else to go." The door shut behind him. Sam sat in silence, staring at nothing. She had never felt more alone. Final blow. Later that afternoon, Daniel received the call he had been waiting for. "Mr. Carter," he answered smoothly. There was a pause, then a sigh on the other end. "I assume you already know. Sam is being let go. Effective immediately." Daniel smiled to himself. "That's unfortunate," Carter exhaled. "I don't know what you were hoping to achieve, but you made your point. She's done here." "Good to know." Daniel replied simply. Carter hesitated. You really had nothing to do with this? Daniel chuckled. I guess some secrets just have a way of coming to light. Hanging up, he slipped his phone back into his pocket and strolled into a nearby coffee shop. He had done what he set out to do. Sam was finished, and for the first time in weeks, he felt completely, utterly free. Daniel sat alone in his car, parked at the edge of the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the glass towers. He sipped his coffee, letting the warmth seep into his hands, watching the world move on. The same way he was about to. Sam was finished. After Carter's decision, there was no coming back for her. Her career, the thing she valued more than their relationship, more than anything else, was in ruins. No respectable firm would touch her now. Jason had suffered the same fate. His wife had thrown him out of their home. His colleagues had turned against him, and his name had become a whisper in office corridors, a cautionary tale. And Daniel was free. He had spent the last few weeks crafting the perfect downfall, ensuring that every piece fell into place with surgical precision. And now, standing at the edge of it all, he felt nothing but clarity. As he took another sip, his phone vibrated against the dashboard. A message. Sam, we need to talk. Daniel stared at the screen. He should have expected this. She wasn't the type to give up without trying to salvage something. Another message followed. Sam, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, I need to explain. He exhaled slowly, resting his phone on the passenger seat. Explain? What could she possibly say that hadn't already been said through her lies, her actions, her betrayal? He let the message sit unanswered. A few minutes later, his phone rang. This time, he picked up. Daniel, Sam's voice was raw, her usual confidence stripped away. Please, just hear me out. He didn't answer, letting the silence stretch. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued, her voice cracking. I need you to know that it wasn't just about Jason. It wasn't about love or some deep connection. It was, she exhaled shakily. I was just lost, okay? I was selfish and reckless, and I wasn't thinking about the consequences. Daniel let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. Now you're thinking about them. Of course I am, she snapped, then immediately softened. I lost everything, Daniel. Yeah, you didn't lose it, he corrected. You threw it away. Silence. Are you happy now, she whispered. You got what you wanted, right? You made me suffer. Daniel leaned back in his seat, looking out at the city. I never wanted you to suffer, Sam. She swallowed hard. Then, what did you want? He considered that for a moment. The truth was, revenge had never been about watching her break down. It had been about justice, about balance, about making sure that she felt even a fraction of the betrayal she had inflicted on him. But now, he just wanted her gone. I wanted closure, he finally said. And I got it. A small, choked sound came from the other end of the line. He wasn't sure if she was crying or if she was just out of words. Either way, it didn't matter. This is the last time we talk, he said calmly. Goodbye, Sam. And then, without waiting for another response, he ended the call. A new beginning. The next morning, Daniel woke up earlier than usual. The air smelled like fresh rain and the city outside felt lighter. Or maybe it was just him. He went about his routine as if nothing had changed, but everything had. The weight that had been pressing on his chest for weeks was gone. He showered, shaved, put on a crisp navy suit, and slipped on his watch. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he didn't see a man consumed by vengeance anymore. He saw a man who had walked through hell and come out unscathed. By the time he reached his office, the whispers of scandal had already begun to fade, work continued as usual, projects moved forward, and the world did what it always did. It moved on. As he stepped into his corner office, he glanced down at his phone one last time. Sam's name still lingered in his message history. With a final swipe, he deleted it. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. His assistant peeked in. Mr. Carter wants to see you. Daniel nodded, grabbing his files. On my way. As he walked down the glass-lined hallway, something settled deep in his chest. A certainty that this was just the beginning. He wasn't the same man who had stood in that kitchen weeks ago, staring at Sam's laptop screen, feeling his world crack. That man was gone. This new version of himself? He was untouchable.